Hi everybody, Melissa Wilson here, physician assistant and Ask an Expert for AIM at Melanoma. I'm really so happy that you decided to join me for Melanoma 101, where we're talking about all things melanoma. Today our topic is going to be how moles form. And the reason that I chose this as one of our very first topics is because I really wanted people to understand how moles form, because it's the most important part of why we're all here. If we didn't form moles, there would be no melanoma. And so this is a normal part of production of your skin. It's actually something that is genetically predetermined. The number of moles that you're going to have, the code for that was already there before you were even born. And so I think that if we can understand in general where moles come from, then the rest of the topics that we're going to address in this series will make a lot more sense. So what I decided to do is try to draw a cross section of the skin. And I promise this won't get too much biology for you, but I think that, we want to really understand how this process happens. So when you look at the skin, the most important thing right off the bat is that there are two layers. There is the dermis, which is the more living part of your skin. It actually is a little bit thicker than the epidermis. In this picture, I kind of drew them a lot the same just for the sake of being able to see them. But the dermis actually contains all of the blood vessels in the skin for the most part. It's the connection to the rest of your body. So you can see that the blood vessels here actually connect to deeper blood vessels that will then go off and travel to other parts of the body. The dermis also contains some lymph node tissue. It contains all of your nerve endings that do extend up into the epidermis, but for the most part, that's where they are. And so this is a very living part of your skin, the dermis. The epidermis is actually made up of primarily dead cells. The exception to that is at the very bottom is a layer that is wavy. So it waves like this, and the dermis waves in the opposite direction. And so they kind of link together like this. And so the reason that is that it forms a very tight junction, so those two things don't separate. And the connection between the epidermis and the dermis is very fluid. And so that layer of skin of epidermis, or that layer of the epidermis that actually touches the dermis, is where all of the living cells of the epidermis are found. And that happens to be where the melanocytes are. So melanocytes are actually living cells. They are constantly producing something that is called melanin. Melanin is what gives our skin and our hair and our eyes color. Melanocytes in different individuals will actually produce different colors of pigment. So not every melanocyte is going to produce the same appearance of melanin. Not every melanocyte is going to produce melanin at the same rate. And so that's where the difference comes, but everyone has the same number of melanocytes, believe it or not. When your melanocyte produces melanin, it actually deposits it into the layer of skin surrounding it. And so the melanin sort of is distributed evenly throughout the cells. So as the cells are formed, they migrate up. And so within this layer, they are alive and they have melanin in them, and they continue to migrate up. And as trauma or, the cycle of this cell exists and these are sloughed off, they're replaced from underneath with more skin cells. And so these melanin producing melanocytes actually are continually doing this as our skin constantly replaces itself. So that's sort of in the skin where all of the structures happen. And then I drew this picture over here for you because genetically we are programmed to have moles or not moles. And when you're born, you have the genetic code to produce whatever moles you're going to produce in your lifetime. So sometimes those will be present when you are first born, and sometimes over the next couple of years until you hit puberty, those moles will evolve and appear. But you're genetically predisposed to have whatever moles you're going to have until you get to puberty. And so normally before we talk about moles, like normally the melanocytes are pretty evenly spaced so that they give pigment that looks very uniform. So that's, you know, when you look at my arm, for the most part, it has about the same color. However, when your body genetically decides it's going to make a mole, those melanocytes are clustered or aggregated together. And that actually forms like this little demonstration, which is where the melanocytes are more tightly packed. And so instead of evenly spacing the pigment throughout the skin cells, they actually are deposited pretty much in the same area. So as those skin cells migrate up, what you see on your skin is a mole. And that's really cool to me. So when we talk about other things like doing biopsies and how UV light affects melanocytes, understanding that, you know, this is what our body has decided to create for us, I think is going to make things make a whole lot more sense moving forward. So I hope that you enjoyed the very first topic of Melanoma 101. Please come back. We're going to talk about a lot of really interesting topics, and we'll have lots of fun together. I hope you have a wonderful day. Talk to you soon. Bye.